it just gave me hope. It gave me hope because the idea of testing everything before and getting a complete picture of what was really going on, including the immune system and all the toxins, and then testing things after the protocol and seeing how much things got improved and what was left was actually what was the most exciting for me. Hey, my name is Nick Kent, and I did the MDLifespan Mold Protocol. For almost a decade, I had issues that were mostly manifesting as chronic fatigue. And I went to many doctors trying to figure out what was going on, to no avail. I was basically told that it's mostly stress and stress related. Spent almost a decade searching until I realized I tested my place and my place came back positive for mold. Mold is very tricky to get tested. There are tests that you can buy at Home Depot, which are going to basically going to test positive for most households. This is a very specific test that measures how many spores are in your air, actually, how many of them are suspended and what types of spores. And my test came positive, and it was pretty bad. And what that meant was not only leaving that place, but actually leaving everything behind. So all of your furniture has spores, all of your clothes, all of that had to be left behind because they're notoriously bad for, they can't get, it's impossible to get rid of them. And so once I left my place, I was hoping that the situation would kind of resolve, but it was 5 years later and my fatigue was just not going anywhere. So none of this really makes sense, but you're sort of like constantly feeling like you're not present. You walk into the kitchen, you forget why you came into the kitchen, you start forgetting words, and you just slowly start feeling like you're trapped in your own body. And then there were times where I just couldn't get out of bed for days. You know, your body sort of is in a constant fight or flight mode. Your body's constantly being under attack and you don't really know why. So it's just taxing. But I think the mental fog and just the inability to concentrate or inability to do regular tasks or just having no desire to do anything that you really liked before, it's just devastating. I mean, the thing about mold is it's very tricky because the symptoms kind of masquerade themselves as a lot of the symptoms that people complain about, and they're just non-specific. It starts up with fatigue, slowly, always being kind of tired, waking up tired, having to rely on coffee to just function. And so I figured that there was something else that had to be done and that mold was still present in my body. And that's when I came across Lifespan. So after our initial consultation, the whole plan was to do extensive blood work to look at the immune system, and then to do a urine test, which basically would test for 150 toxins, just to get an overall picture of what the situation was like. So my toxin tests came back loaded with mycotoxins, and they actually corresponded to the ones that were found in my apartment in LA. Once I got the first round of tests and I realized how heavily burdened my body was, it was a huge relief because for over a decade, doctors are telling you it's just stress, it's nothing, your blood work is within range. But of course, you don't realize that regular blood work is not going to show any kind of toxicity. And so once I got the results, it was a relief because I thought, okay, there's hope now. For the first time ever, somebody looked at the data and said, I don't even know how you function because none of this is normal. And just having somebody confirm that things are not normal, that was just incredible. Just knowing that there's going to be improvement was just phenomenal. I mean, the thing about mold is it's very tricky because the symptoms kind of masquerade themselves as a lot of the symptoms that people complain about, and they're just non-specific. It starts up with fatigue, slowly, always being kind of tired, waking up tired, having to rely on coffee to just function. So the actual plasma exchange procedure was probably the easiest thing because it's really not, it's quite easy. Basically what happens during the procedure, you have two lines, one in each arm. So one line takes all the blood to this giant machine, and the machine centrifuges the solids from plasma. So you keep the stuff that you want to keep, namely the red blood cells and white blood cells, and that plasma gets tossed out, which you get to see next to you. This giant It's about 3 liters, so a gallon fills up of plasma. And with it, you basically toss out all the stuff that's in it that your body does not want or is reacting to. So all different types of antibodies, toxin, heavy metals, and things like that. So the procedure was pretty easy. And then I flew back to LA. And then the most interesting thing happened the day after. I went back to the gym, and it felt like I was flying. It's just the clarity, the strength, and just the ability to focus was something that I had honestly forgotten what that felt like for a long time. And so that lasted for about 2, 3 days. And then slowly, after the first one, slowly you start kind of going back to feeling more and more tired. And that is because the tissues start releasing all the toxins back into your bloodstream. And so it's, you're sort of accumulating them back, and it's time for you to do another one to toss them out. So after the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth procedure, I did not have those reactions. It was just getting incrementally better. And after, I think, the third procedure, I felt noticeable difference in terms of it was starting to level out, and I was starting to feel just better overall consistently. My plan actually is to do a few more, because I feel like I just want to give my body the best chance to fully recover. I would just space them out more, but that's the current plan. And then continuing on with the diet, elimination of all the plastics, and getting rid of everything that we can humanly do to just not get re-exposed again. It's pretty spectacular. It's interesting because I also had a friend of mine who I've sort of given up regular doctors for a long time. And I have a friend who's a hematologist oncologist who is a family friend, a really smart guy who's tried to help me for many years. Really, sort of like him and I were researching PubMed, and I'm like, hey, my AI is saying that we should try this, and maybe you should try that. And he was the only person willing to say, hey, I think something's going on. I don't know really how to help you, but let's try it. And the fascinating thing about, because he's an oncologist who works with immune systems constantly. Once I did this, I talked to him about the tests and the possibility. He said, I don't know if it's going to help, but it's not going to not help. So let's see. But I will never forget him being a skeptic and just asking me constantly, did you get the results? Did you get the results? Did you get the results? Finally got the results, and he was amazed. So now sort of you feel liberated and kind of have a second chance to really think about what you really like and what you really want. And in my case, that's just being with people I love. And that sounds too simplistic maybe, but life is just all about experiences that you have with people. And so for me, it really comes down to that.